The husband ignored his wife's text message, not knowing those would be the last words she would ever send him. The bathroom faucet had been dripping for 3 weeks. Helen heard it from bed, every night. Drip, drip, drip. But she never mentioned it. Tyler had more important things to worry about. He always did. It was 9 p.m. on a Tuesday in November in New York City, and the damp chill seeped through the windows of their Brooklyn Heights apartment, just as it always did this time of year. Helen was in the kitchen, leaning against the marble countertop that Tyler had picked out 5 years ago without consulting her. She felt the sharp pain in her right side returning, like an animal waking up whenever it pleased. She bit her lip. It was nothing. It had to be nothing. Tyler had gotten home from work 2 hours ago. He'd showered and changed into his navy blue Armani suit, the one he wore for important dinners, and was now standing in front of the hallway mirror, adjusting his tie with the millimeter. In precision, he applied to everything except her. Going out? Helen asked, even though she already knew the answer. Dinner with investors, I told you this morning. He hadn't, but it didn't matter. He sprayed his cologne, the one that smelled of expensive wood and broken promises, and grabbed his car keys from the bowl by the door. The same bowl where Helen left the unpaid bills because he never touched them. Don't wait up. The door closed before she could reply. The apartment fell into silence, the usual silence, the kind that smelled of reheated morning coffee and the leftover rice she had eaten alone at 3 p.m. While standing and staring blankly at her phone, Helen rested her hands on the blank axe counter and closed her eyes. The pain was like a fist, slowly clenching, squeezing tight, and then relaxing. It had been like this for months, weeks where it worsened, days where it almost disappeared. She had tried telling Tyler 3 times. The first time, you're just stressed. The second, go to a doctor if you're so worried. The third, Helen always has some issue. After that, she stopped bringing it up. Helen Adams had learned a long time ago that in her marriage, there was a limited amount of praise, space for problems, and Tyler already took up all of it with his own. She poured herself a glass of tap water, the New York water tasting faintly of chlorine as if leaving traces of something that shouldn't be there. She moved to the couch, the gray sectional they had bought at the Red Hook IKEA on a rainy Saturday back when they still pretended decisions were made together. She turned on the TV, an episode of E! News she didn't care about, a host with overly bleached teeth gossiping about a celebrity divorce. Helen turned up the volume to drown out the dripping faucet. At 10:30 p.m., the pain returned, much stronger this time. She clutched her side, pressing hard as if she could contain it with her palm. She took a deep breath, counted to 10. Nothing. She grabbed her phone and opened her text messages. Her last conversation with Tyler was from 4 days ago. Helen, you eating at home? Tonight? Helen typed slowly, deleting and rewriting every word. Tyler, I need you to read this now. I'm not okay. The pain is getting unbearable. She hit send. Underneath the message, it said delivered. She waited a minute, 5 minutes. The status changed to read, but there was no reply. A few miles away, at a trendy restaurant in Tribeca, with a view of the Hudson River, Tyler Adams was cutting into a filet mignon he didn't need, while Carter talked about something he wasn't entirely listening to either. Riley was 30. Her brunette hair was pulled back into a sleek high ponytail that showed off the gold earrings he had bought her 2 weeks prior. She had a laugh that made every man in the restaurant turn his head. She knew it, and she liked that they knew it. Are you even listening to me? She asked, dabbing her dark red lips with a cloth napkin. Of course I am. Are you giving me that look? Tyler smiled. Riley was like, that direct, drama-free, no awkward silences mid-dinner, no sad looks when he came home late. His cell phone vibrated in his jacket pocket. He pulled it out and glanced at the screen. Helen. Riley arched an eyebrow. Is it her? Tyler sighed, placed the phone face down next to his plate, and picked up his wine glass. I'll look at it later. It's always something, isn't it? Riley said, leaning forward with a smile that knew exactly what it was doing. Either her head hurts, or she's tired, or I'll need you to come home. It's nothing serious, right? Seems like every time we go out, she texts you like she can't go 2 hours without keeping tabs on you. Tyler didn't answer. He just cut another piece of steak. Riley was right. Helen always needed something. There was always a problem, always a reason for him to feel guilty for not being there. The phone buzzed again. This time, he didn't look. Back in the Brooklyn apartment, Helen was on the bathroom floor. She didn't remember how she got there. She remembered trying to stand up from the couch, feeling her legs give out, and then the cold of the tiles against her cheek. The pain was no longer a fist. It was a knife. One that someone was twisting slowly, taking their time, making sure she felt every single movement. She was struggling to breathe. Her old cotton t-shirt was soaked in sweat. It smelled of fear. That cold sweat the body produces when it knows something is terribly wrong. With trembling hands, she grabbed her phone. Tyler, I never ask you for anything, but I'm scared right now. Delivered. Then, read. Nothing. 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 She stared at the screen, waiting for the typing bubble to appear. It didn't. She let the phone drop. The faucet kept dripping. At the restaurant, Tyler asked for the check. Riley smiled, running her tongue over her teeth as if she had just won a prize. Heading to your place? She asked, playing with her earring. A hotel. Riley stood up, grabbed her Prada bag, another gift from him, and waited for him to place his hand on her lower back to guide her toward the exit. Tyler's phone vibrated again. Riley saw it. Tyler clenched his jaw, pulled the phone out, and read the notification without opening the message. Then he put it away. She really doesn't get that I need space, he muttered. Of course she doesn't, Riley said as she slid into the Uber. Because you let her. If it were me, I would have made it clear by now that we both have our own lives. The car smelled of new leather and the expensive perfume she wore. They headed toward a luxury hotel on Fifth Avenue, where he always booked a room when he needed an excuse not to go home. He didn't check his phone again for the rest of the night. At 3 a.m., in the Brooklyn apartment, Helen was still on the bathroom floor. She wasn't crying anymore. She had no strength left for it. She picked up her phone one last time. Her fingers barely responded. She typed slowly, deleting 3 times because the letters kept blurring. If you can't come, it's fine. I can handle this on my own. She pressed send, dropped the phone again, closed her eyes, and then she screamed. It was a scream she didn't know she had inside her. A scream that made her upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Miller, who had lived in the building for 20 years, and never minded anyone's business, drop the chamomile tea she was making and rush to wake her husband. Arthur, call 911. I think something's wrong with the place. Girl downstairs. The ambulance took 12 minutes to arrive. 12 minutes during which Helen tried to breathe, to count, to hold on to consciousness. When the paramedics broke in, a young guy with a slight southern accent and a woman with her hair in a tight braid found Helen lying on her side, clutching her stomach, lips pale, white, her eyes wide open and fixed on the ceiling. What's your name, honey? The woman asked, kneeling beside her. Helen. Okay, Helen. Can you tell me where it hurts? She pointed to her right side. How long has it been hurting? Months. The paramedic and her partner exchanged a look. We're taking you to the hospital. Don't move. They loaded her onto the stretcher. The apartment was left empty, the TV still playing, the sink still dripping, and Helen's phone lying on the bathroom floor, with a cracked screen and 3 unanswered messages. On the screen, the read receipts remained, seen but ignored. Mount Sinai Hospital smelled of cheap disinfectant and vending machine coffee. Helen opened her eyes slowly. Her eyelids felt like they weighed 10 pounds each. The fluorescent ceiling light was too white, and looking directly at it, hurt. She didn't know where she was. Then it all rushed back. The bathroom floor, the pain, the screams, ambulance. She tried to move. A sharp, stabbing pain in her right side reminded her it was a bad idea. She had an IV in her left arm hooked up to a saline drip, hanging from a metal pole. The room was small, with green privacy curtains that didn't quite touch the floor and an empty vinyl armchair by the window. She turned her head. On the bedside table sat her phone. Cracked screen, 3%. Battery. She picked it up with shaking hands. 4 unread text messages. None. From Tyler. 1 from her mother. How are you doing, sweetie? 1 from her. Neighbor, Mrs. Miller. Helen, the doctors asked for your husband. I told them he Was away on a business trip. One from her bank. Reminder. Payment due. Helen closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Her chest ached in a completely different way now. It wasn't physical. It was worse. The door opened. A nurse with a blonde ponytail and dark circles under her eyes walked in holding a clipboard. Ah, you're awake? How are you feeling? What happened to me? Kidney stone. About the size of a chickpea. We've given you pain medication and we're going to run a few more tests. The nurse checked her IV, jotted something down on her clipboard, and then looked at her with that blend of professionalism and pity Helen knew all too well. Is your husband on his way? Helen took a moment to answer. I don't know. I called him. I texted. The nurse didn't say anything. She set the clipboard down and left the room, without looking back. Helen grabbed her phone again and opened her messages. The 3 texts were still there, the read status glaring at her like an accusation. Read at 10:47 p.m. It was now 6:30 a.m. 8 hours. Tyler had read her messages 8 hours ago and hadn't replied, hadn't called, hadn't shown up. She dialed his number. It rang 5 times, then went to voicemail. This is Tyler. Leave a message. She hung up. She dialed. Again. Voicemail. She let the phone drop onto the white sheets that smelled of industrial bleach. She stared at the ceiling, counting the water stains. 7. 7 stains shaped like invented continents. The door opened again. This time it was a young doctor with round glasses and a lab coat that was slightly too big for him. Good morning, Helen. I'm Dr. Ramirez. How are you holding up? I'm alive. The doctor gave a weary smile. You have an 8-millimeter kidney stone. It's a big one, which is why the pain was so intense. We're going to see if you can pass it naturally, but if you don't improve in the next few hours, we'll have to operate. Operate? It's a simple procedure, but yes, surgery. Helen nodded slowly. The doctor checked her chart, made a note, and then looked at her with the expression doctors use when they have to ask something. Uncomfortable. Is there anyone who can come sit with you? Family? Does your husband know you're here? Yes. The doctor waited for her to elaborate. Helen said nothing. Okay. Well, we'll keep you under observation for a few hours. If you need anything, press the call button. He pointed to the remote by the bed and walked out. Helen was alone again. Alone in a hospital room that smelled of other people's sickness, with an IV in her arm and a phone that wouldn't ring. At 7 a.m., in a hotel room overlooking Central Park, Tyler Adams woke up with dry mouth and a headache throbbing behind his eyes. Riley was asleep next to him, her brown hair spread across his pillow, an arm draped over his chest. The sheet barely covered her. She smelled like her perfume mixed with the scent of last night's sex. Tyler sat up slowly, trying not to wake her. He grabbed his phone from the nightstand. 32 notifications. 13 emails. 8 missed calls. All from Helen. And 1 text from the neighbor, Mrs. Miller. Mr. Adams, your wife is at Mount Sinai Hospital. She was taken by ambulance. Early this morning. His stomach dropped. He read the text 3 times, as if staring at the words long enough would magically change them. What's wrong? Riley asked, half asleep, rolling toward him. Helen's in the hospital. Riley opened her eyes. What? The neighbor says she was taken by ambulance. I have to go. Riley sat up, pulling the sheet over herself. Seriously, Tyler? She always has something wrong with her. I bet it's just another one of her stunts to get your attention. She left in an ambulance, Riley. Fine. But Riley ran a hand through her hair in frustration. Look, I don't want to be a bitch, but it's always the same story. Every time we're together, she pulls something to make you run right back. Tyler didn't answer. He got dressed in silence. His wrinkled dress shirt from yesterday, the suit pants that smelled like the restaurant, the shoes he had, kicked off by the door. Riley watched him from the bed, her arms crossed. Are you coming back? I don't know. Right. Tyler shoved his wallet into his pocket, grabbed his keys, and left the room, without a backward glance. In the elevator, he finally opened Helen's texts. Tyler, I need you to read this. Now. I'm not okay. The pain is getting unbearable. I never ask you for anything, but I'm scared right now. If you can't come, it's fine. I can handle this on my own. The words hit him like a physical blow. He gripped his phone so hard, his knuckles turned white. He crossed the marble lobby with its crystal chandeliers, ignoring the front desk clerk who wished him a good morning, and stepped out, onto Fifth Avenue. New York was waking up. The early MTA buses were rolling by. A group of tourists with massive backpacks stood on the corner. A guy was selling coffee from a street cart. Tyler got into his car and drove toward Mount Sinai, his stomach churning and his mind looping over the same sentence. I can handle this on my own. When Tyler walked into the hospital room, Helen was awake, staring at the ceiling as if counting things only she could see. She turned her head when she heard him enter. She didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't speak. Tyler stood by the door, hands in his pockets, not knowing what to do with his body. Helen, What time is it? She asked, her voice completely neutral. It's Kahdexen. Kolmekummenta. Silence. Tyler took a step toward the bed. I didn't know it was this serious. If I had known... I texted you 3 times, Helen interrupted, without raising her voice. I know, but I thought. You thought. Tyler opened his mouth, closed it. Nothing he could say was going to sound right. I thought you were. Overreacting. Helen let out a short, dry, humorless laugh. Of course. Tyler, excuse me, where? Were you? The question hung in the air like smoke. Tyler swallowed hard. At a dinner. With investors. Until 8 a.m.? Silence. Helen stared at him, her eyes tired, dry, tearless. Who were you with? Tyler? No one. I told you. Liar. Helen, don't raise your voice. Her tone remained low, steady, devoid of anger. That was what scared him the most. I am lying in a hospital bed because my body decided it had to scream, since you wouldn't listen to me. So do not tell me to lower my voice. Tyler recoiled as if he had been slapped. The door opened. The same nurse walked in carrying a tray of medications. Ah. The husband finally makes an appearance, she said, her tone anything but warm. How nice. She left the pills on the tray, checked Helen's 4, and walked out, without another word. Tyler sank into the vinyl armchair, the same one that had been empty all night. What did the doctors say? He asked, trying to sound concerned. That I have a kidney stone. If I don't pass it, they'll operate. Right. More silence. Helen picked up her phone and looked at the screen. A thought crossed her mind. She opened Instagram and searched for the name that had popped up a few times. When Tyler left his iMessage app open, on their shared laptop at home, Riley, Carter, and there she was. The profile picture, that sleek high ponytail, those gold earrings. Helen tapped the profile. Her bio read, Finance, Lifestyle, NYC. Her stories. From 3 hours ago. Perfect dinner. Sometimes life surprises you. 3 hours ago. Exactly when Helen had been loading into the ambulance. Helen closed the app and took a deep breath. Now she had a name, a face, and a certainty. Riley wasn't just a fling. She was someone who had built her entire life on the idea that she deserved more, that she could take whatever she wanted. And Tyler, with his money, his status, his perfectly curated life, was exactly the kind of prize she felt she deserved. It wasn't love. It was ambition, dressed up as romance. And somehow, that hurt even more. What did the doctor say? Tyler repeated. That I have a kidney stone. If I don't pass it, they'll operate. Helen picked up her phone again, opened her texts, searched for something, and then turned the screen toward Tyler. Who is Anna? Tyler blinked. What? Anna from accounting just texted me asking if I can tell you that you have a 9 a.m. meeting tomorrow. She says you're not answering your phone. Oh. Helen laid the phone on her lap. And why does she text me if you don't answer? I don't know, Tyler. I suppose she assumes I'm your secretary. Isn't that it? Then what is it? Tyler didn't answer. He stared at the floor, at the white tiles with gray. Veins clean but old, like everything in this hospital. Helen closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she spoke again, her voice sounded more exhausted than angry. Go home, Tyler. Take a shower, change your clothes. You smell like a perfume that isn't mine. Tyler's head snapped up. Helen, come on. Leave. I'm not leaving you alone. You already left me alone, she said, opening her eyes and looking directly at him, months ago. So it doesn't matter if you stay right now or not. It doesn't change anything anymore. Tyler opened his mouth to protest, but something in the way she looked at him made him shut it. He stood up slowly, grabbed his keys from the windowsill. "I'll come back later." Helen didn't reply. Tyler walked out. The door clicked shut softly. Helen stared at the ceiling again. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Miller. "Are you okay, sweetheart? If you need me to bring you anything, just say the Vord," Helen replied. "I'm okay, thank you." Then she opened Instagram again. She didn't know why. Maybe because she had been suspecting it for months and had never dared to verify it. She went to Tyler's iCleese private profile, clicked on his followers, and started scrolling. Names she didn't know, faces she didn't recognize, and then she saw her, Riley Carter. Helen clicked on the profile, which was public. Pictures of dinners at expensive restaurants, gym selfies, rooftop bars with Manhattan views, and there, in a post from 2 weeks ago, a group photo at a restaurant in Tribeca. Tyler was in the background, slightly out of focus, but it was him. Helen zoomed in. Right. Next to Tyler was Riley, wearing that high ponytail and those gold earrings. She read the comments. "Gorgeous, Riley. Who's the guy in the back?" Riley's reply. "A colleague from the industry. Business dinner." Helen put the phone down on the bed. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting the 7 water stains, and made a decision. She didn't know exactly what yet, but she decided. The nurse walked back in. "Do you need anything?" Helen looked at her. "Yes. I need to speak to a lawyer." Helen left the hospital 3 days later with a bag of painkillers, a 6-page medical report, and a mental clarity she hadn't felt in years. Mrs. Miller insisted on escorting her back to the apartment. They took the elevator up the one that smelled of cheap pine air freshener and had a scratched mirror where someone had carved NYY with a key. Without saying much, Mrs. Miller carried a Trader Joe's bag filled with groceries she had bought without Helen asking. Milk, bread, tomatoes, a bottle of Tylenol. "If you need anything, whatever it is, call me," Mrs. Miller said as they reached the apartment door. "Thank you. And that husband of yours?" Mrs. Miller pursed her lips as if holding back something she'd wanted to say for days. "Well, it's none of my business." "No," Helen said with a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It isn't." Mrs. Miller gave her an awkward hug, the kind older people give when they don't know what else to do, and walked away. Helen stepped into the apartment. Silence. The same silence as always, but now, it felt different, as if the air density had shifted. Tyler wasn't there. He had left a sticky note on the kitchen island, written in his perfect prep school handwriting. "Went to the office, will be back tonight. Food in the fridge." Helen crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. She stood in the middle of the living room, looking at the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. The gray IKEA couch, the coffee table with magazines she never read, the lamp they bought at the Brooklyn flea market that she never really liked, but Tyler thought was modern. The framed photos on the bookshelf, their wedding in Montauk, a vacation in Miami, a Christmas dinner with his family. All a lie. Not a complete lie, but a lie nonetheless. She sat on the couch, picked up her phone, and texted her cousin Lauren, who lived in Philadelphia and was a family law attorney. "Lauren, I need to talk to you in person." The reply came in 2 minutes. "What's wrong, Helen?" "Tyler is cheating on me." "Are you sure?" "Yes. When can you get here?" "Tomorrow." "Perfect. I'll expect you at my office at 11 a.m. And Helen?" "What?" "Don't say a word to him yet." Helen set the phone on the table, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. She wasn't going to say a word. Not yet. The next morning, Helen took the Amtrak from Penn Station to Philadelphia. The train car was half full. A group of college students with massive backpacks were talking loudly. A woman with a baby was trying to soothe him. A man in a suit was reading the Wall Street Journal without looking up. Helen sat by the window and watched New York slowly fade away, replaced by industrial zones, sun-scorched fields, and small towns whose names she never remembered. The train smelled of breakfast sandwiches and cheap deodorant. She closed her eyes. The pain in her side had dulled, but it was still there, a lingering reminder that her body had to scream to be heard. She arrived in Philly at 11:10 a.m. Lauren was waiting at the door of her office. An old building near Center City, holding 2 coffees and wearing the serious expression she reserved for when things got real. "Cousin, you look terrible," Lauren said, handing her a coffee. "Thanks. When was the last time you slept?" "I don't remember." They walked up a narrow flight of stairs that creaked with every step to the Fairy Dew's second floor. Lauren's office was small, featuring a desk buried under files, a computer straight out of the 90s, and a window overlooking an alleyway where someone had abandoned a washing machine. Lauren closed the door and sat behind her desk. Helen sat across from her. "Tell me everything." And Helen did. She told her about the ignored text messages, the hospital, the Instagram photo, the cologne that wasn't hers, the lies about investors, the late-night dinners, the silences, the "you're overreacting," the "we'll talk later," the years of feeling small in her own home. Lauren listened without interrupting, taking notes in an old spiral notebook. When Helen finished, Lauren set her pen down. "Okay, we're going to split this into 2 parts, the emotional and the legal." She took off her glasses, rubbed her eyes, and put them back on. "Emotionally, your husband is a son of a bitch. We already knew that. Legally, we have to be smarter than him? What do you need me to do?" "First, document everything. Texts, photos, schedules. If he has another bank account, we need to know. If he has properties in his name that you don't know about, we need to know. Are you joint owners on the apartment? We bought it 5 years ago. Mortgage? Yes, we split it, though lately I've been paying more because he said he had business expenses." Lauren jotted something down. "No kids, that makes things easier." Lauren looked at her intently. "Do you want a divorce?" The question hung in the air. Helen took a moment to answer. Not because she didn't know, but because saying it out loud made it real. "Yes." "Are you certain? Because once we start this, there's no going back." "I'm sure." Lauren nodded. "All right then. Let's do this right. No drama, no confrontations. Until we have everything ironclad. I need you to act completely normal. Go home, follow your routine, and give him absolutely zero sign that you know what's going on." "For how long?" 2 weeks. 3, tops. In the meantime, I'm hiring a private investigator." "A PI? Lauren, I know he's cheating on me." "I believe you, but in front of a judge, we need undeniable proof. Photos, dates, locations, everything documented." Helen clenched her hands in her lap. "Okay. Another thing. Open a new bank account in your name only. Start moving money. There. Not too much at once so he doesn't notice. But start saving. Just in case." "In case of what?" "In case he tries to leave you with nothing when he finds out." Helen felt a prick of anxiety in her stomach. Not physical pain, but fear. Can he do that? "He can try. That's why we're going to be faster." Lauren picked up her cell, phone, dialed a number, and waited. "Yeah, hi, it's Lauren Foster. I need to talk to George about a case." "Yes, right now." "Okay, thanks." She hung up. "George is the best PI in Philly. He works in New York too. Discreet, fast, doesn't ask stupid questions. His rate is $1,500, $750 up front. The rest when he's done." Helen swallowed hard. $1,500. She had some savings, but not a lot. Most of their money was in the joint account with Tyler. "I have it." "Good. I'll text you his contact info. Call him today. Tell him everything. He handles the rest." Helen nodded. Lauren stood up, walked around the desk, and leaned against the clothes edge right in front of Helen. "'Cause are you okay?" Helen let out a short, humorless laugh. "No. Stupid question." Lauren put a hand on her shoulder. "But you will be. I promise. This is gonna suck, but you're gonna be okay on the other side." Helen looked up. "How do you know?" "Because I've known you since we were 6, and you fell off the swings in the park and broke your arm. Remember what you said? You didn't cry. You said, 'It's fine, I can get up by myself.' You were 6, Helen, and you already knew how to pick yourself up." Helen felt a lump in her throat. She didn't cry, but she was close. Lauren gave her a hug. She smelled like coffee, and the same Zara perfume she had worn since college. "Let's get this bastard," Lauren said, but with style. Helen took the 4 p.m. train back to New York. This time, she didn't look out. In the window, she spent an hour and a half reading articles on New York divorce, law, marital assets, and how to split a co-owned property. When she arrived at Penn Station, she called the detective. George had a deep, gravelly voice like a guy who smoked 2 packs a day. He asked direct questions. Husband's full name, address, workplace, physical description, license plate, daily routine. Helen answered without hesitating. Do you know who he's messing around with? George asked. I think so. Her name is Riley Carter. She works in finance or something. I don't know much else. That's enough. Give me a week. A week? If he's as stupid as he sounds, it won't even take that long. They hung up. Helen took the subway back home, a train to Fulton, then transferred to Brooklyn. The car was packed with commuters heading home from work. It smelled, too, of sweat and peppermint gum. A busker with a guitar was playing a sloppy cover of Oasis's Wonderwall. Nobody was paying attention. By the time she walked up to street level, it was dark. The storefronts in her neighborhood were lit up. The corner bar's patio was packed with people, laughing, drinking IPAs, smoking. Helen walked slowly to her brownstone, walked up the stairs. The elevator was broken again, and unlocked the door. Tyler was on the couch with his laptop and a glass of wine. Hey, he said without looking up. Where were you? Just went for a walk. Feeling better? Yeah. Tyler nodded, his eyes glued to the screen. Helen stood in the hallway, watching. To him. His perfectly styled hair, his crisp white shirt, the expensive loafers, kicked off by the door. Everything about him screamed control, order, perfection. A lie. You want some dinner? She asked. No, I already ate. Okay. Helen walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. There was a Tupperware of leftover pasta he had ordered in. She dished some out and ate standing by the window, looking out into the interior courtyard where the neighbor across the way was hanging laundry on a rusted fire escape. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. How did it go with George? Good. He said give him a week. Perfect. How are you acting? Normal. Good, keep it up. Remember, he doesn't know that you know. Helen pocketed her phone, finished eating, washed her plate, dried her hands on a towel that smelled faintly of mildew, and walked back to the living room. Tyler was still on the couch. I'm going to bed, she said. Okay, I'll be right behind you. Helen went to the bedroom, changed, got into bed, and closed her eyes. Tyler came in 2 hours later, smelling of that expensive cologne, and climbed into bed without a word. 5 minutes later, he was snoring softly. Helen opened her eyes in the dark, turned her head, and looked at him. Her husband. The man she had been with for 10 years. The man who had ignored her texts while she screamed in pain on a bathroom floor. The man who was about to lose everything. She didn't feel anger. She didn't feel sadness. She felt something far more dangerous, utter calm. 5 days passed. Helen acted with flawless normalcy. She made breakfast, tidied the apartment, replied to his texts with brief answers, and smiled when he spoke to her. Tyler didn't notice a thing. He was too busy being Tyler. On Monday afternoon, while Helen was reviewing bank statements on the home office computer, Tyler walked in carrying an Anthropologie shopping bag. Bought. You something? He said, dropping it on the desk. Helen opened it. A blue sweater. The wrong size. Thank you, she said, devoid of emotion. You don't like it? Ido. It's nice. Tyler stood there looking at her, as if expecting something more. When it didn't, come. He shrugged and walked to the kitchen. Helen turned back to the computer, continuing her search, documenting every receipt, every hotel charge, every lie. On Tuesday afternoon, while he was in a meeting, Helen opened their shared laptop. She checked the browser history. Tyler hadn't deleted anything. He never did, because he never thought she'd look. Hotel reservations, restaurant, bookings, and emails with Riley that he had forgotten to close out. See you tonight at the usual spot. Can't wait to see you. Helen doesn't suspect a thing. That last sentence stung more than the rest. She took screenshots of everything, saved them in a hidden folder, and emailed them to Lauren. That same night, Tyler came home late, almost 11 p.m., dinner with the partners. From Chicago, he said, loosening his tie. It dragged on forever. How did it go? Good, I think we're going to close the deal. He poured a glass of wine and sat on the couch. What did you do? Nothing. Watched TV. Ah. He took a sip. By the way, I have another dinner with them on Friday. Helen nodded. She didn't ask anything else. She didn't need to. She already knew that on Friday, there was no partner dinner. On Friday, Tyler had a reservation at the Plaza Hotel under T. Adams plus guest. George, the PI, had confirmed it that afternoon. On Thursday, George called. I've got what you need. That fast? Told you. If he's stupid, it wouldn't take long. And he's stupid. George let out a dry laugh. Photos of them walking into the hotel together. Photos. Leaving. Restaurant shots. Even caught him buying her jewelry at a boutique on Fifth Avenue. You want me to keep going, or is this enough? It's enough. Send them via encrypted email. The password is my date of birth. Got it. One more thing. George paused. That girl, Riley, she's not the first. Helen felt the floor drop out from under her. What? Your husband has been doing this for years. I talked to a contact at the hotel. They know Tyler. He books a room at least twice a month. Different women. Helen sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands were shaking. How many? 3 that I could confirm in the last year. Probably more. I'm sorry. No. Helen took a deep breath. Don't be sorry. I needed to know. She hung up. She sat there staring at the bedroom wall. The room smelled of his cologne mixed with hers, a scent that used to feel like home and now made her nauseous. She didn't cry. She had no tears left for Tyler. Her phone buzzed. Lauren. George sent the photos. It's plenty. Are you ready? Helen stared at the text for a full minute, then typed back. Yes. Good. First thing tomorrow we file the petition. Bring all the paperwork, the apartment deed, bank statements, everything. Okay. Helen? What? You're almost at the finish line. Helen set her phone on the nightstand. Tyler would be home in 2 hours. Just like always. He would walk in, shower, and pretend everything was fine. But this time, Helen wasn't going to pretend. This time, she was holding the cards. She stood up, went to the closet, pulled a small suitcase down from the top shelf, laid it on the bed, and started packing. Tyler arrived home that night at 11:30. Helen heard him put his key in the mating to lock the metallic click she knew by heart after 10 years. The turn, the door, swinging open. She was sitting on the couch. No TV, no phone, just sitting there, with her hands in her lap, exuding a calm that even frightened her a little. Hey, Tyler said, closing the door. Why are all the lights off? Helen clicked on the corner floor lamp, casting a soft yellow glow that stretched shadows across the hardwood floor. Tyler looked at her. Something in her expression made him freeze. What's wrong? Sit down. Helen, I'm exhausted. Long day. And sit down. It wasn't a request, it was a command. Tyler blinked, bewildered, but obeyed. He sat in the armchair opposite her, draping his suit jacket over the backrest. Helen looked at him in silence for a moment, memorizing the way he crossed his legs, the crease between his brows, the expensive watch on his wrist. Everything she used to find attractive now just seemed pathetic. Do you know George Mitchell? She asked. Tyler frowned. Who? Private investigator out of Philly. Very good, actually. Discreet. Works fast. The confusion on Tyler's face morphed into something else. Unease. What are you talking about? Helen picked up her phone from the coffee table, swiped the screen, opened the folder George had sent, and turned the screen toward Tyler. This. The first photo. Tyler and Riley walking into the plaza together. She was wearing a red dress. His hand was resting on her lower back. Tyler turned white. Helen. She swiped to the next photo, the two of them leaving the hotel. Then another, a restaurant. Another, buying jewelry on Fifth Avenue. One more, kissing in an ethereal alleyway in Greenwich Village. There are 43 photos, Helen said in a flat voice. Taken over the last 7. George is very efficient. Tyler opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I can explain. No. Helen set the phone down. You can't. Helen, listen to me. This is a misunderstanding. Stop. She cut in, leaning forward. Do not insult my intelligence more than you already have. I have photos, I have texts, I have hotel receipts, restaurant, bills, I have everything. The silence that followed was dense, heavy, as if the air in the room had insolidified. Tyler dragged his hands down his face and took a shaky breath. When? He finally spoke. His voice sounded ragged. How long have you known? Does it matter? Yes. 2 weeks. Since the night you left me to nearly die in a hospital alone while you were screwing Riley in a hotel. Tyler closed his eyes. It was a mistake. No. Helen let out a sharp, dry laugh. Buying the wrong brand of milk is a mistake. This is a decision. One you made every single day for months. Years, according to George. Tyler's head snapped up. Years? You thought Riley was the only one? Helen tilted her head. George found at least 3 others from the last year alone. Probably more, but we didn't want to waste the budget investigating further. The color rushed back into Tyler's face. This time, it wasn't panic. It was anger. You hired a private investigator? Are you insane? No. Helen stood up. I am sane for the first time in a very long time. Tyler stood up too, taking a step toward her. Do you have any idea what this could do to my reputation? To my firm? Helen stared right through him. I don't care. Helen, you are my wife. Not anymore. The phrase hung suspended between them like a knockout punch. Tyler stepped back. What? Tomorrow morning, first thing, I am filing for divorce. My attorney already has all the documentation, photos included. You can't do that. I already am. Tyler shook his head as if the motion could undo her words. Helen, think about this. You don't have to do this. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can work it out. Helen let out a laugh that had zero humor in it. Tyler, you left me screaming. In agony on a bathroom floor. You ignored my messages. You chose another woman. At the exact moment I needed you the most. What part of that gets fixed with therapy? It was a mistake. I told you. And I told you I don't care. Tyler moved closer, lowering his voice, acting as if speaking softly might change reality. Helen, please. We've been together for 10 years. You can't. Just throw that away. Why? She interrupted. Because of one affair? Or 3? Or the ones I don't? I even know about? She took a step toward him, forcing him to hold her gaze. You already threw it away, Tyler. I'm just finally acknowledging that it's broken. You're just letting your anger talk. When you calm down, I'm not going to calm down. Tyler clenched his fists, jaw tight, his eyes shining with something that could have been tears or rage, or both. For one split second, Helen caught a glimpse of the man she had met, the one who proposed to her on a beach in Montauk with shaking hands, the one who cried tears of joy at their wedding, the one who once truly loved her. But that man had been gone for years, replaced by this stranger, wearing his face a man who chose his ego over love, lies over truth, and Riley. Over her, over and over again. What about the apartment? The money? Tyler asked, his voice suddenly sounding desperate. We sell the apartment, or one of us buys the other out. My lawyers already are handling it. As for the money, Helen smiled a tiny, ice-cold smile. New York? Law is very interesting when it comes to fault in a divorce, and the division of assets, especially when there's overwhelming proof of marital waste on affairs. You bitch. No. Helen grabbed her suitcase from by the couch. That's you. Where are you going? To Lauren's place in Philly. I'm staying there until this is sorted out. You can't just walk out. Watch me. Tyler blocked her path with his body. Helen, please. Let's talk. Move. No, until you move out of my way, or I am calling the cops. Something in her tone, the absolute 0-degree chill of it, made Tyler step aside. Slowly, as if every inch physically hurt him, Helen walked past without looking. At him, opened the door, and paused on the threshold. By the way, she said over her shoulder, Riley is also getting a copy of the blank photos. Courtesy of George. Just so you know, you aren't the only one about to lose something. She shut the door before he could respond. Helen walked down the stairs, her suitcase thumping against each step. Thump, thump, thump. She stepped out onto the street. The New York night smelled of damp asphalt and the fried food from the Chinese takeout spot on the corner. A group of tourists walked past yelling something. A couple was arguing in a doorway across the street. She pulled out her phone and called Lauren. It's done, she said when Lauren picked up. How did it go? Exactly as we expected. Are you okay? Helen stood in silence for a moment, looking up at the window of her apartment. Tyler was standing there, looking down. When their eyes met, he quickly stepped back into the shadows. Yes, Helen said. I'm okay. 4 months later, Helen was sitting in Lauren's office signing paperwork when her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. You're a bitch. Helen stared at the message, then showed it to Lauren. Riley, Lauren said without looking up from the documents. George sent her the photos yesterday. Looks like she didn't know Tyler was sleeping with other women. Behind her back, too. Lauren smirked. Is she mad at him? No, at me. Well, probably me and him. But she's taking it out on me. The phone vibrated again. Do you know what your husband did? Do you know how? Many other women he was with? Helen typed, yes. That's why I'm divorcing him. Good luck with him. Then she blocked the number. Lauren looked up. Ice cold. You learned from the best. They chuckled. Helen's phone rang. This time it was a number she recognized. Her mother. Sorry, Helen said, standing up. It's my mom. I need to take this. She stepped out into the hallway and answered. Hey, Mom. Helen, honey. I just got off the phone with Tyler. Her mother's voice sounded frantic. He says you've lost your mind. That you're leaving him for no reason. What? Mom? Helen took a breath. Tyler has been cheating on me for years. I have absolute proof. I filed for divorce. Silence on the line. What? What are you saying? But Tyler? He would. Never. Yes, he did. And I'm not going to pretend everything is fine anymore. Honey, are you sure? Sometimes marriages go through. Mom. No. Another pause. Then a heavy sigh. Okay. Her mother's voice shifted, grew, firmer. Okay. What do you need? Helen felt a lump form in her throat. Nothing. Just believe me. I believe you. Her mother paused. And if Tyler calls me crying again, I'm hanging up on him. Helen let out a laugh that was half sob. Thanks, Mom. She hung up, stood in the hallway staring at her phone, and then walked back, into the office. Lauren looked up. Everything good? Yes. Helen sat down. Let's finish this. A week later, Helen got a text from an old coworker, a woman named Martha, she hadn't spoken to in years. Girl, just heard about Tyler. What a piece of trash. If you need anything, I'm here. Helen frowned. How did Martha know? She opened Instagram and searched for Riley's profile. The account was no longer private. The latest post was a picture of Riley and Tyler together at a restaurant, but the caption read, When you find out the man of your life has 3 other parallel lives, don't. Be like me. Don't believe the lies of married men. 3,000 likes. 500 comments. Helen scrolled through them. So sorry, babe. Men are all the same. Drop his name so we all know to avoid him. Riley had replied to that last one. Tyler Adams. Works in finance in NYC. Let everyone know exactly what kind of man he is. Helen set her phone on the desk. Lauren, who was sitting across from her, in Neventang, drinking coffee, raised an eyebrow. What's up? Riley just aired everything out on Instagram. Seriously? How do you feel? Helen took a moment to process it. She stared at the screen. The comments kept climbing, people sharing, tagging. Fine, she finally said. I feel fine. Lauren smiled. Good. Helen's phone vibrated. A text from Tyler. Did you see what Riley did? This is your fault. You gave her those pictures. You ruined my life. Helen read the text twice. Then she typed, No, you ruined your life. I just stopped covering for you. She blocked his number. Lauren raised her coffee mug. To the women who stopped covering for them. Helen tapped her mug against Lauren's. To us? They drank in silence. Outside, Philadelphia was noisy, chaotic, and alive. And Helen, for the first time in years, felt like she was a part of it, alive. 6 months later, Helen walked into her regular coffee shop in Astoria, the one with mismatched chairs and a help-wanted sign that had been in the window for as long as she could remember, and ordered a latte. It was a Saturday morning. The sun streamed through the smudged windows, making the dust motes float in the air like cheap glitter. She sat by the window with the New York Times she had bought at the corner. Bodega. She didn't read it. She just needed her hands occupied. The barista, a college kid with a vintage band tee, brought her the coffee. Helen thanked him. He nodded and went back to the counter, where another customer was ordering a bagel. Helen looked out the window. The neighborhood was buzzing with life. A woman, dragging a wildly overstuffed grocery cart. A guy with dreadlocks selling incense on the corner. Two kids in school uniforms chasing each other, yelling something about the Yankees. Normal. Completely normal. And the strange thing was, normalcy now felt extraordinary to her. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. How's everything? Good. Drinking coffee. You? Sama old. Cheers. Helen sipped her latte. It was too hot, but she didn't mind. The barista walked by wiping down tables. The radio played softly in the background. Some indie rock. Song about not turning back. She thought about Tyler. According to Lauren, the rumors in the New York finance sector had spread like wildfire. Clients were asking questions. Investors were pulling back. It was the kind of silent damage that doesn't make the front page, but slowly erodes a reputation. She didn't feel smug satisfaction, nor did she feel pity. She felt nothing. Or maybe something better than nothing. Complete indifference. The divorce had been finalized 4 months ago. Mutual agreement. In the end, Tyler accepted everything without much of a fight, probably because his lawyer told him that with the photos, the texts, and the PI's testimony, he stood zero chance in court. The Brooklyn apartment was sold. Helen took her half. Tyler took his. Clean, cold, fair. Helen rented a small 500 square foot apartment on the 3rd floor of a walk-up in Astoria, Queens. The windows faced a noisy interior alley where neighbors argued loudly at 2 a.m. and someone practiced the drums on Sunday afternoons. It was perfect. For the first time in years, Helen lived in a space that was entirely hers. No compromises, no negotiations, no having to ask if she could paint a wall blue or buy a houseplant that Tyler deemed impractical. The first month had been weird, waking up alone, cooking for one, washing a single plate, but then she got used to it, and then she started to love it, and then she realized that this chosen solitude was vastly superior to forced company. She had gone back to work part-time at an accounting firm. The pay wasn't great, but her coworkers were kind. Nobody interrogated her if she came in with dark circles under her eyes, or if she zoned out staring at her monitor for 5 minutes straight. On Thursdays, she went to therapy. Her therapist, Dr. Maya, had an office in Manhattan and a fat cat that would crash the sessions and demand lap time. During the first few weeks, Helen had cried endlessly about everything. The lost years, the ignored red flags, the way she had convinced herself that silence meant peace when it was actually just fear. But now, 6 months later, she barely cried. Now she just talked, and that was better. Tyler, from what Helen heard through the grapevine, was not doing well. His firm had lost more than half of its major accounts, not explicitly because of the props divorce, but because of how painfully public it had become. In an industry where trust and reputation are currency, Tyler went from being a brilliant financial mind to the guy who screwed around while his wife was dying in a hospital. Social media was unforgiving. Helen had seen him once since the divorce, at a Whole Foods near Union Square. He was in the frozen food aisle, staring blankly at frozen pizzas, as if I couldn't figure out which one to pick. He had a 3-day beard, a wrinkled hoodie, and worn-out sneakers instead of his usual Italian loafers. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. He opened his mouth as if to say something. Helen just turned her shopping cart and walked down the next aisle. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She simply continued her grocery shopping. When she eventually went to the registers, he was gone. Riley had completely vanished from the map, too. Her Instagram account was deactivated after the comment section turned into a war zone. Someone said she had moved to Miami. Someone else claimed she was working retail in Jersey. Helen didn't check. She didn't care. The only thing she knew for sure was that Riley and Tyler's grand romance had lasted exactly 2 weeks after everything blew up. According to Lauren, who somehow had contacts everywhere, the relationship imploded when Riley found out Tyler was still DMing other women. Predictable, Lauren had said while eating a slice of pizza at her place in Philly. Cheaters don't change. They just find new ways to justify their bullshit. Helen had just nodded, taking a bite of her slice. She hadn't said anything. She had nothing left to say about Tyler. One Tuesday evening, Helen was in her apartment, reorganizing her closet when the buzzer rang. She walked down to open the front door. It was Mrs. Miller, her old neighbor from Brooklyn. She was holding a large Tupperware container and a timid smile. Hi, sweetie. I was in the neighborhood visiting my sister and thought I'd bring the sister and Lott'd bring all you this, baked ziti. I know you love it. Helen felt a warmth bloom in her chest, a feeling she hadn't had in months. Mrs. Miller, you didn't have to do that. Of course I did. Mrs. Miller handed her the Tupperware. How are you doing? Good, honestly, I'm really good. Mrs. Miller looked at her with those sharp eyes that had seen a lifetime of things. You look better. You have a lightness to you. Thank you. They hugged goodbye. Mrs. Miller smelled of lavender soap and Tide laundry detergent. When she left, Helen locked the door, stood in the hallway, looking at the Tupperware of baked ziti, and smiled. A small, genuine smile. On Saturdays, Helen started going out with a group of friends from work. They'd catch an indie movie at the Metrograph, or grab drinks at a dive bar in the East Village, or just wander aimlessly around the city. They didn't talk about men all the time. They talked about work, Netflix shows, politics, and a new food truck in Queens that had the best smash burgers in the city. One of them, Chloe, asked her once, "What about you? Seeing anyone?" Helen shook her head. "No, and I'm not looking." "You sure? Because my cousin is a great guy, totally single." "I'm sure." Helen smiled a real smile. "Right now, I just want to be with me." Chloe nodded and dropped it, and Helen was grateful, because it was true. Helen didn't need anyone to feel complete. Not anymore. On a crisp October afternoon, Helen was walking through Washington Square Park, a bay place she usually avoided because of the crowds of NYU students and tourists, when she spotted a young couple arguing near the fountain. The guy was yelling. The girl was crying. "You always do this. You always make a massive drama out of nothing. It's not nothing. You never listen to me. Here we go. Always the victim." Helen stopped. She looked at the girl. She looked about 25. Her mascara was running, her hands shaking as she dug frantically through her purse for a pullable laughter tissue. Helen walked over. "Is everything okay?" she asked the girl. The guy snapped his head toward her. "Who the hell are you?" "Nobody." Helen ignored him and kept her eyes on the girl. "Do you need some help?" The girl looked up, her red eyes lost and overwhelmed. "I'm not. I'm just—" "She's fine," the guy interrupted. "She just gets like this. Dramatic." Helen looked him dead in the eye. "You know what? Walk away. She and I are going to go get a coffee. You aren't invited." The guy blinked, completely taken aback. "You can't just tell me to—" "I just did. Leave." Something in Helen's tone, firm, utterly devoid of anger. Just stating an undeniable fact, made the guy take a step back. He muttered something under his breath and stormed off toward the West 4th subway station. Helen looked at the girl. "Coffee?" The girl hesitated for a second, then nodded. They went to a small cafe near the university. Helen ordered 2 lattes. She didn't press for details. She just waited. After 5 minutes, the girl spoke. "Up. I've been with him for 2 years, and it's always like this. If I do something wrong or say something he doesn't like, he twists it to make me feel like I'm the crazy one." Helen nodded. "I know exactly how that feels." "You do?" Helen sipped her latte. "I was married for 10 years to a man who made me feel invisible. And when I finally stood up for myself, he tried to convince me I was overreacting." The girl stared at her. "What did you do?" "I left him." Helen smiled. "It took me years to realize it, but I left. And now, I'm better than I've ever been." "Weren't you terrified of being alone at first?" "Terrified." Helen set her mug down. "But eventually you realize that being alone is infinitely better than being with someone who makes you feel small." The girl fell silent, staring into her cup. Then she whispered, "I think I need to break up with him. I think you're right." They sat in companionable silence a while longer. Before leaving, the girl asked for Helen's number in case she needed someone to talk to. Helen gave it to her. When they stepped out of the coffee shop, the girl hugged her. "Thank you." "You're welcome." They parted ways. Helen kept walking. She took the subway back up to Astoria. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment. She unlocked the door. Silence. Her silence. And for the first time in a very long time, that silence wasn't scary. It was peaceful. December arrived, bringing freezing rain and biting wind. New York exploded with holiday lights. Winter villages popped up in Bryant Park and Union Square. People lugged massive shopping bags out of Macy's. The city smelled of roasted nuts and that specific damp chill that seeps straight into your bones. Helen spent Christmas with her mother and sister upstate in Cold Spring. They ate roast turkey, mashed potatoes, and pecan pie. They watched classic Christmas movies on TV. They laughed. Nobody mentioned Tyler. And that was the best part of the entire trip. On December 31st, Helen stayed alone in her apartment, not out of obligation, but by choice. Lauren had invited her to Philly. Chloe had invited her to a massive warehouse party in Bushwick. Her mom had begged her to come back, upstate. But Helen said no. She wanted to be alone, to close out the year on her own terms. She cooked herself pasta, drank cheap wine from Trader Joe's, and blasted Music the Killers, Fleetwood Mac, Florence plus the Machine, all the loud music. Tyler used to hate. She danced by herself in her living room. At 11:55 p.m., she stepped out onto her small fire escape. From there, she had a planga sliver of a view of the Manhattan skyline, the lights, the noise, the sheer life of the city. The countdown began on a nearby TV. 10, 9, 8. Helen thought about the year she was leaving behind. The pain, the hospital, the lies on the bathroom floor. 7, 6, 5. She thought about the year ahead. The possibilities. The future. 4, 3, 2, 1. Fireworks erupted over the East River. The city screamed, celebrated, lived. And so did Helen. She raised her glass of cheap wine to the skyline. "Happy New Year," she said out loud. To nobody, to herself. And she smiled. A massive, genuine, liberated smile. Because for the first time in years, Helen Adams wasn't waiting for anyone to save her. She had already saved herself. A year and a half later, Helen was sitting on the patio of a bar in Queens, one of those spots with plants hanging from the ceiling and tables made out of recycled pallets, drinking a draft beer with Chloe and 2 other coworkers. It was a Friday afternoon. The May sun was bright, but the shade from the awnings made the heat bearable. They were talking about trivial things, a true crime, docuseries they were all binge-watching, their nightmare of a new manager, their plans for the weekend. Normal. Absolutely normal. And it was exactly what Helen needed. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. A text from an unknown line. Number. "Hi, Helen. It's Carly. We met a few months ago in Washington Square Park. I don't know if you remember me, but I was the girl arguing with her ex. And you bought to me a coffee." Helen took a second to place the name, then smiled. "Yes, I remember. How are you?" "I'm doing really well. Much better. I dumped him 8 months ago and I just wanted to say thank you. That day, you made me realize I wasn't crazy. And that I deserved better. I'm so glad to hear that. What are you up to now?" "I live alone now. I'm in therapy. I went back to school. And I'm happy. Or at least I'm learning how to be. That's the most important part. I'm proud of you. Seriously. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't walked over that day." Helen read the message twice, then typed, "You don't have to thank me. You did. The hard work. I was just there. Even so, thank you. I hope you're doing well." "I am. Take care." She locked her phone and slipped it back into her pocket. Chloe looked at her. "Everything good?" "Yeah." Helen took a sip of her beer. "Everything's perfect." That night, Helen went back to her apartment in Astoria. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs. She didn't even get winded anymore. She opened the door. The apartment smelled like the vanilla candle she had blown out that morning before work. She kicked off her shoes, put on her pajamas, threw together a salad, and ate on the couch while watching a nature documentary about whales that she didn't really care about but liked for the background noise. When she finished, she washed her plate, dried her hands, and stood in the kitchen looking out the window into the courtyard. Someone in the opposite building was playing the piano. Badly, but they were trying. Helen smiled, walked into her bedroom, opened the drawer of her nightstand, and pulled out an old notebook she had bought at a dollar store. The pages were filled with her messy handwriting thoughts, reflections, things she had been writing down since the divorce. She flipped to the very first entry, written the day she was discharged from the hospital. "I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I can't keep living. Like this. Then she flipped to the very last page, written 2 weeks ago. I woke up today and didn't think of him a single time. I think I'm finally free. She closed the notebook, put it back in the drawer, got into bed, turned off the lamp, closed her eyes, and slept through the entire night without a single nightmare. 2 months later, Helen was on the subway heading home from work when she saw Tyler. He was at the far end of the subway car, sporting a scruffy beard and a wrinkled jacket, staring at his phone with that exhausted expression she knew so intimately. Their eyes locked across the crowded train. He opened his mouth as if he was going to say something. Helen just looked away. The train pulled into her station. She stood up, stepped off onto the platform, and didn't look back. As she walked up the stairs to the street, she braced herself for a rush of emotion, but all she felt was nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even vindictive satisfaction, just pure indifference. And that was vastly better than any revenge. On a Saturday in September, Helen was cleaning out her closet when she found an Enemaela's old shoebox shoved in the back corner. She opened it. Inside were photos from her wedding, vacations with Tyler, dinners with mutual friends she no longer spoke to. She stared at one photo in particular, her and Tyler in Miami, smiling, looking happy, or at least pretending to be. Helen picked up the photo. She looked at it for a full minute. Then she ripped it in half, then into quarters, then into eighths. She dropped the pieces into the trash, not out of rage, not out of spite, simply because she no longer needed to hold on to memories of something that was never real to begin with. In October, Lauren came to visit New York. They met up for lunch at a Vietnamese spot in the East Village. They ate pho and spring rolls and laughed until their lips hurt. "'Cause you look so different," Lauren said, wiping a tear from laughing so hard. "Different, how?" "I don't know." Lauren looked at her intently. "Lighter, like you took a massive weight off your chest." Helen nodded. "I did. It took me 36 years, but I did." "And how does it feel?" Helen considered the question. She thought about how she would have answered it 2 years ago. How she would answer it now. "It tastes like freedom," she finally said. "Like not having to ask permission to exist." Lauren raised her water glass. "To freedom." Helen clinked her glass against Lauren's. "To freedom." In December, Helen's mother called her. At the grocery store. She asked about you. Helen was on the stove cooking lentils. She turned the heat down to a simmer. "And what did you tell her?" "That you were doing wonderfully. That you've rebuilt your life." Her mother paused. "She also told me that Tyler is doing terribly. His firm almost went under, and he's, I don't know, deeply depressed or something." Helen stirred the lentils in silence. "Helen, are you still there?" "Yeah, I'm here." "How does hearing that make you feel?" Helen took a moment to answer. She thought about the Tyler she used to know, the confident, arrogant man who never apologized because he never believed he was wrong. And then she thought about herself, the woman she used to be, the one who made herself small, who apologized just for taking up space. "I don't feel anything, Mom," she finally said. "And that's a good thing." Her mother sighed on the other end of the line. "Thank God, sweetheart. I'm so glad." New Year's Eve came around again. This time, Helen didn't stay home alone. She went to a massive party Chloe threw at her loft in Brooklyn. The place was packed with people, loud music, laughter, cheap wine, and bowls of potato chips. At midnight, everyone crowded onto the rooftop. They popped champagne, screamed, hugged each other. Helen looked out over the New York skyline, at the glittering lights and the fireworks. The city that had watched her break into pieces and build herself back up. Someone handed her a plastic cup of champagne. "What are we toasting to?" asked a bearded guy Helen didn't know. "To the new year," someone shouted. "To health," someone else said. Helen raised her plastic cup. "To second chances," she said. "And to giving them to ourselves." Everyone cheered. The champagne was warm and way too sweet, but it didn't matter. Helen drank it. She smiled. She lived. By March of the following year, Helen was strolling through the Brooklyn Flea Market on a Sunday morning when she saw a young woman crying on a bench. She looked to be about 30. Her makeup was smeared, and her hands were shaking as she clutched her cell phone. Helen stopped. For a second, she thought about walking past. It wasn't her business. She didn't know her, but then she remembered. She remembered the hospital, the ignored text messages, the cold bathroom floor, the crushing loneliness. She walked over. Are you okay? The woman looked up, eyes red and puffy. Do you want to talk about it? The woman stared at her, hesitated, and then nodded. Helen sat down on the bench next to her. The woman poured it all out, a husband who ignored her. Unanswered. Texts. Broken promises. Years of feeling completely invisible. Helen listened. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When the woman finally finished, Helen looked at her softly. I went through exactly the same thing. And I survived. And you are going to survive too. How do you know? Because you're sitting here crying, you're feeling the pain, and that means I still have fight left in you. Helen placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. The day you stop feeling anything, that's the day you should worry. But today, cry as much as you need to. And tomorrow you start fighting back. The woman nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself when you finally make it out. They said their goodbyes. Helen kept walking through the market. She bought some artisanal cheese, a loaf of sourdough bread, some olives, normal everyday things. And as she walked back home, the tote bag swinging from her shoulder, she thought about something. She thought about those last words she had texted Tyler from the bathroom floor. If you can't come, it's fine. I can handle this on my own. At the time, she had typed them out of pain, desperation, and terror. But now, a year and a half later, those words meant something entirely different. Now, they were a fulfilled prophecy. Because Helen had handled it on her own way, without waiting for anyone to come save her. And that, in the end, was more powerful than any love she could have ever received from Tyler. Because the love that actually mattered, the love that actually changed her life, was the love she finally gave to herself.